everyone. My name is Rocio Peng, and as an educator, I will discuss how I can will or fight racism in schools. Schools are supposed to be a safe place where everyone feels they belong, but the reality is that racism still exists in our classrooms, and even in the books we read. It shows up in obvious ways, but also in less obvious ways, like whose history gets taught and whose gets ignored. And as a future teacher, I have the responsibility to stop this. Today I'm going to share three specific strategies I will use to fight racism in my classrooms. Um, in the video racism in school, how can we fight it? What really stuck with me were the young people featuring in it. The kids in the video inspires me because they didn't just sit back quietly. They spoke up about the racism and unfair treatment they faced from both peers and teachers. Seeing the students demand changes was inspiring, but also it showed me that as a future teacher, we need to listen to youth voices and to support them when they call out racism and unfair treatment. The Black Panther Vanguard of the Revolution video gave me a different perspective on how to fight back. The Black Panthers resisted racism not just by protesting, but also creating community programs like free breakfast for kids and demanding an education that taught their true history. In the same way, my own strategies for fighting racism in schools can be seen as resistance to racism, by changing what we learn and how we treat each other, or even when we are resisting a traditional school system that has historically left out or harmed people of colors. Just like the Panthers build community and knowledge to fight white supremacy. We can build strong, supportive, anti-racist classrooms to resist those same forces today. I also drew inspiration from my own experiences growing up in the K to 12 school system, as well as the textbook Rethinking Multicultural Education. Here are the three ways I will fight racism. When I was in middle school, I remember seeing classrooms get made fun of speaking a different language or having accents. It made them feel embarrassed. And then I realized this is a form of racism. In chapter 17 of Wayne O's text, quotation says, putting out the linguistic welcome mat. So the author talks about how schools often forces students to leave their home languages at the door. My first strategy is to create a linguistic welcome mat. I will fight racism by celebrating all the language that my students speak, making sure their culture is respected, and that all my students also learn more about one another cultures. So I also noticed when I was in the middle school that certain students, specifically students of colors, were often very quiet in class. I think that is because they didn't see themselves in the books where we read, and then also they had nothing to relate to. So they were afraid of being stereotyped. So this connects directly to, I think it was chapter 19 of Wayne O's book, which explores why Asian American students are often silent in class due to pressure of model minority myth. So my second strategy is to fight against stereotypes. And this will create lessons that requires everyone's perspective so that nobody feels like they have to hide who they are. My third way to fight racism is by changing what we read and study. Too often, history leaves us out many of the different cultures that are part of this country. And for this, well, we have to use books and other cultural stories to help challenge that. So I got this idea directly from chapter 36 of Wayne O's book, which explains the use of I think it was Margaret Walker's poem for my quote for my people to help students talk back to stereotypes. And I will make sure, you know, we learn about the actual struggles of marginalized people, as discussed in chapter 39 of I can say that word, Wayne O's text. It is important to bring the true civil rights movement in the classroom, you know, and it will teach the history and provide examples of students' power and resistance to, so that my students can see that. Give me a second, cause my eyes are bothering me today. What was I saying? Okay, so the civil rights movements in the classroom, so sorry. So this will teach the story that provide examples of students' power and resistance, so that my students can use that, and they have the tools to fight for justice even at such a young age. Fighting racism is a one thing, you know, a one-time lesson. It takes resisting unfair systems like the Black Panthers did, listening to students' voices, and changing how we teach. So by welcoming different languages and teaching real history, it will make my classroom an inclusive and anti-racism. Sorry, I gotta pull my chair up. My classroom an inclusive and anti-racist space where all students are welcome and safe to learn. So I hope this really make the point across and you guys understand this video. Bye.